Taking a deep breath. Hey guys, Yolanda at Dryer Buzz, and it's been a minute since we did a How to Get Out of Bed live. Let me tell you. Let me ask you, who needs a nap already? I've been up for a bit working on some things, and I realized I haven't done one of these live. I've started doing them going straight to the podcast platform, and I wanted to test out the mobile version of this one of the platforms. And so I said, I might as well do a How to Get Out of Bed. And I see I already have a couple people watching. I don't know how much I can see and engage. I do know if you do post a comment, say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, let me know what time zone it is for you as we begin this conversation, then I will be able to engage with you. But listen, How to Get Out of Bed is something that I've been doing now probably a couple of years, I believe. I know I full on did a 90-day series in these episodes, and I actually did do those online and live. Then we took it from live to just kind of record it and some engagement, just putting them out there each day. They are How to Get Out of Bed is my first thoughts of the morning, unscripted, frog in my throat. Literally haven't done much, but although I did progress over the time, it came to me to do these because I had told my story about being a caregiver. Oh, Anita Hill is on TV, and I get distracted. Okay, telling my story about being a caregiver, going through grief, trying to get back to this normal, you know. And the odd thing is, and the blessing for you is that a lot of what people are experiencing now in this traumatic pandemic, this time I went through it 5 years earlier, and so I could talk a little bit about it, and I could share some things. And one of the reasons I still do this about get how to get out of bed is because people are still learning. I'm still recognizing the traumas that have happened all up and around and through here, and in sharing them, I know the feedback that I get. I know for myself coming into it when here's the thing, y'all. In fact, I journaled through this podcast, so I start with a blank sheet. Actually, I started with some sheets that I've already written in the journal because I was going to do a recap, and I still may. But when I say things on here, because it's unscripted, I try to jot it down. And luckily on this one, I can mute for a second and cough. Okay. But let me say when. We've got to get used to the win. And I know we don't want to, but there's a win. There's a win. These things are going to happen to us. There are things and times in our lives it's going to happen when. And there are some amazing times when, and there's some traumatic times when, there's some peaks, there's some valleys. Look, you've heard it all. I'm trying to give you the actual factual. Yeah, it happens to folks. The blessing for me was that I have always had amazing people around me willing to share. You know, I didn't have a lot of people who shut down everything. It's like, listen, let me tell you this, let me tell you that. I've always had amazing people. And then two, I spent 20 years writing and blogging about people who had ordinary lives that did extraordinary things that became amazing people, right? Many of the people today that are at the tops of everybody's list that they've checked the boxes off that they want to meet in those kinds. I experienced all these people on their rise. If you look at where people are today and you go back and you research them where they were 20 years ago, even ourselves, so I've always been inquisitive and I've always sought out the answer. There's a difference in wanting to know something and literally stopping what you're doing, making it a sense of urgency that you find out how something is done, who did it, even like, especially now, even like today, headlines that say the first this and the first that. And I'm like, okay, that was the first person to succeed at it or the first person to get a publicized opportunity. But I guarantee you there were more. There's never really one. There's never really. I mean, the planet's been here a very long time. Okay. There's some things that are new. Yeah. But there's also some things that other people have done and succeeded at. And we should learn from those people. We should be willing to, and I hope you guys, I hope there's sound. um, And somebody type in the comments and let me know, because I am on a whole other platform, and I'm gonna get through this doing it this way, and hopefully it's working. So if you hear me, you understand the sound of my voice, please just put a one or a comment or something like that. But also, you know, I try to encourage every day, because people come to me. I've written a couple of books and things like that. So I get a lot of feedback. Also, I get a lot of people like in my inbox every day of people asking for referrals of this, that, and the other, how to do this and how to do that. Because they've searched for it and found their way to me, because the content that I have placed out there is out there, and so forth and so on. And they want to know how things are done. Uh, and that's why I'm forever grateful to people who were transparent, fully transparent, and was willing to show the way for a lot of things that we do. And so when I remember at the onset of um, our time, and I'm using those words so that I don't get so overwhelmed in these conversations and trying to share. But when our time came, just so happened I done a story on a person that was talking about self-care and healthcare and all this kind of stuff, and being a caregiver and taking care of someone. And I gone to a conference, and it was a part, there was a as they always have all these different lanes you can go down, you can go as you pick your sessions and so forth. And I was like, let me see what's going on this one. So I always had some heads up. And then I had friends who were in my lane that had gone through things out like we did in our time, and had shared. And I'm so thankful for them and so grateful. And how about like when you are on your social media, because we're certainly not out and about right now, but on your social media, and people go down your timeline and post and things like that. There are different reactions we have to people when we see their post, and we see their name, or we see different things. There's triggers, right? When and triggers are so very important, because when you are astute to them, when you are cognizant of them, when you are aware of them, when you start to realize how you respond to them, when you are scrolling, all of those the sensories that are going off. You see one person, you smile, another you blush, another one you like side eye. And like, okay, stop right there. Okay, anything on your timeline that's giving you pause and causing your face to change its structure, go ahead and unfollow, go ahead and hide, go ahead and block. you know don't, because that's, you're doing that to yourself, like, right? Until especially if it's an unresolved matter, a misunderstanding. Iyanla and Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. I have on my table right here within my reach. I have one, two, three, four, five. I got five books stacked right there. One of the things I did was I got rid of my bookshelves. So everywhere around my space, I got one, two, three, four, five, and six in that stack. I got stacks all around. Just little nice, neat stacks. Most people paint over them and make whatever, right? But I can reach over there anytime I want to learn something about forgiveness. We hear forgiveness all the time. Forgiveness narrative is a thing. There's a buzzword, right? But people have never talked about, well, wait a minute. What are these behaviors that we're all the time having to forgive? Well, one of the things the Dalai Lama talked about is not just behaviors, it's permission. He and Desmond Tutu have this book together where they were a ghostwriter or whatever, followed them and engaged them in all these conversations and got the two sides of their beliefs, right? And they were talking about, when people wrong us and people do things to us, and the Dalai Lama, and both of them were talking about, how to go into forgiveness. But then the Dalai Lama was like, well, wait now, because you can't keep letting this happen, right? So, we need to sometimes learn how to address some of the behaviors. And it what you cannot fix in another person, is their behaviors. You have to set some parameters. You have to, because before the parameters, before that, you've given permission. And when we, especially in social media, and I could talk about us in social media on this, we in social media, you grant permissions, depending on the platform and how the platform is structured. that you're going to see another person's content, that you're going to see another person's posts, their updates, their pictures, their photos, the photos, their videos, their writings, all inside their mind, inside their domicile, inside their lives, and so forth. Well, seeing that stuff repeatedly is how you formulate what their character is like, especially if you don't get to see them in full dimensional. All you have is, like, right now you're looking at an avatar. And if you follow me for a while, you notice the avatars, they change, or you may have seen me out. You probably can put together a whole 3D model of me because you've seen, you've watched some lives and different things like that. You've seen all my postings and my behavior. You know what my behaviors are. You pretty much probably know what my triggers are. Because some people, you like, oh, I want to see how she reacts to this. Let me tag her and this, that, and the other, right? Some people, each day want my opinion on things. So I get tagged in this, that, and the other. I wake up and my lock screen is like, oh my goodness. Okay, let's see what's going on. Um, so those are things that are triggering to us. Like last night, I was getting ready to go to bed, and one of the things about how I get out of bed is I try to have a great shutdown process. I used to host these events, and I heard of the speaker. I went to one event, and this I saw the speaker talk about getting your rest, and I'm like, well, I have an event also. I'd love for you to come and talk to some very anxious entrepreneurs or people who are starting startups and all this kind of stuff, anxious, just living with all this anxiety, and not getting enough rest, because you really need your rest. I do a daily podcast, unscripted. Sometimes I come on here, I'm like, y'all, I can't open my eyes, I can't get out of this bed. I'm on the couch right now. I got out of bed at 5 o'clock this morning, 5:30. Made the bed, because that's part of the routine. Don't start the day without making the bed, because I like to get to points in my day and check off some stuff, right? So I make the bed. If I'm coming out of the room, if I'm getting out of bed, if I'm awake, if I am awake, I am getting out of bed. I am getting out of bed if I am awake, and so on and so on. So I make the bed, and then I move to another room. I move to a room where some productivity happens. I wanted how to get out of bed to progress to that, right? I I did it. I recorded it from bed for a while. And I'm like, okay, time to progress. Time to get out of bed and do this in another room and be able to tell people how, not ask people how do I get out of bed, but be able to tell people how I got out of bed. All right, and I'm really double checking here, to see how this thing is going. And you know what? I'm gonna test something because I don't know if I can swipe away. Let me see. Okay, it doesn't look like I can swipe away and come back. So I want to try something here. And it says that it's still recording, because I guess it is, because it does let me, and I'm just checking the platform, guys. This is my first time coming back to the platform, and I think I can, while I don't want to, let me see, I can't listen, but it is definitely live, and we did get a like. Okay, so I think we are all right. So let me see if I can get back on track. I really wanted to make sure that this thing was on. Like, is this thing on? But I'm using the mobile version, and it will allow me to do some other things. And I had gotten so used to going back to the desktop, and I wanted to test this out, because I'm now, as events and things like that are coming back, I will now be going out, and I wanted to be able to do some podcasting as well as some broadcasting out. So I wanted to advance how to get out of bed, from how do I get out of bed to here's how I got out of bed. So I last night in my shutdown process, I now turn my phone off. I don't turn the phone off, but I darken the screen. I put the phone down. Okay. I turned the television off. I used to be one of those people that slept with the television on. Till somebody said, that's a sign of just being disturbed by some things. And so now I have a full on shutdown process. I don't mind sitting in the dark. I certainly don't mind sitting in the quiet. And I used to tease people all the time about, when you can't sit with yourself. And I'm like, well, hey, how often do you sit with yourself? So I don't have a problem sitting with the quiet, because I love my thoughts now. Because one, my win has already happened. The ultimate fears, facing, problems in life, dealing with situations. I have now gotten to the habits and my behaviors that I deal with things. I don't pray for more time. There's no procrastination. It's like, oh, that's now. Okay, let's deal with. But listen now, I'm talking about in the now. If it's not now, it's not in my now. My now is so sacred. My now is so sacred. My now is all even part of my brand. I remember I was getting introduced at an event, and somebody said, she gets the story out now. And I'm like, whoa, I need to take that. I need to keep that, because my now is a sacred time. Because the when, let me write that down now. I'm writing, and I don't take copious notes, but I do keep a journal by, because I have to title this thing after the fact, right? But my now is so sacred, because there are things because when interrupts our now. When will interrupt our now. And so one of the things that I have learned to better communicate, that's why I do an unscripted podcast. Unscripted podcast means I'm not second guessing my words. I'm not walking on eggshells. I speak confidently. I speak on a subject by which I can talk about. I speak the truth, because I don't have to organize it, remember it. It just flows off the tongue. The truth, it just flows. Somebody asks you, how are you? What happened yesterday? You don't have to tell it, remember, because it's etched in time, right? And so I can just go with it. I can totally go with the flow. So that's why truth has to be a part of now. But my now is so sacred because of all the things that I have been through. And I'm like, listen, and I had a conversation with my daughter the other day, and she was talking about one, she does case management. And so she has to take on a lot of people's stuff. So she has these mechanisms which to help her not internalize a lot of things. And so we were having that conversation, because she's the person in the family. She's the one that, if you want to know where or how somebody is, ask her, right? For all of us that, might not share with the others, she is the one. There's actually two of them, maybe, that knows where everybody is and what everybody's doing, and so forth and so on. And so she came over. We were chit chatting. How's so and so? How's so and so? And we got into some things, and she had something she wanted to talk about, and so she started talking about it, and I knew to listen. One of the things in being a mom, and especially the primary parent, and I know I had to learn, because one of my, not necessarily flaws, but because I'm a creative. I'm always preoccupied. If I That's why the now is such a focus for me, because I'm always preoccupied. Like I was talking about last night, just trying to go to bed. I was trying to get into my shutdown, and it was like, no, you've got an idea, you better go do it. Don't try to save it to morning. So when my children, because I'm always preoccupied, and I was always working, uh, when they came and sat in my presence, there's something my children would do. They would come and sit in my presence and wait to be acknowledged, because I, again, was a blogger. I was a writer, so I was always writing. I was always in a creative mode, or majority of the time I was live, or I was listening to something, and so forth. And so most of the time I was live. And so they would come, they would sit in my presence and wait to be acknowledged, because that's just a respect thing. And in exchange, I would, when they came into my presence, make sure I got to a stopping point, and then acknowledge them. And if I couldn't, I give a sign of, here's where I am at this. I'm not, or just let them know I'm not at the stopping point right now. Especially during the time when I was a webmaster, and most of the time was dealing with code, because when you're with coding back in the day, old school coding, you couldn't look away. You couldn't turn. Eyes got to stay right there, because if you stopped at the wrong time, tried to look away and absorb something else, you could destroy something. Don't mess around and don't close a bracket, okay? Or mess around and miss something, and so forth and so on. I have been times when I had to stop and do something, and next thing you know, sight disappears, and you're like, wait a minute, and then you got to go back and try to figure out all this, especially, and that's just the thing. But just out of respect, and here when I said that, just out of respect, how many statements can you make today, Or how many actions are you going to do today just out of respect? I need to write that down. Just out of respect. We have a presidential debate today, and there won't be much respect, but just out of respect, y'all. Just out of respect. Um, I would get to a stopping point and acknowledge my children and any others around me that needed me in the now. In the now. And they knew to come to me when it was the now, or when an action was needed now. Even if it was whatever they had going on was a now, the action. Because I would have been like, why you didn't tell me this a week ago or 2 weeks ago, when we could really prepare and be in preparation, because we always wanted to do things well. And the conversation I had with my daughter just yesterday was the fact that she has an opportunity coming up, and we got a chance to honor that in the now, but also to celebrate that each of them are having these moments, these really wonderful moments, even in a time such as this, because of how well we prepared things, or even how we used to procrastinate on things, how we used to handle things. And she said, Mom, you always said, there's got to be an easy way. There's always an easier way if you take it and get the information. She had a fear. What is that? How do you overcome a fear? Information. Information will liberate you. It will free you of that fear. Gotta write that down. Liberate. And I've written it down on a number of things, right? Because that's really what we want in our days. And when we get out of bed, nobody wants to get out of their bed and go and be indentured to a bunch of things, right? You want to get out of your bed and you want to be free to do this and free to do that. Even going to work, and we all got to work, and we all got to pay bills, but you don't want to be stressed about it. In fact, we were talking about this. She's an opportunity, to do some things on the job. And it's like, she's like, but you remember at the last job, I tried to excel, and it was all this. And she did. She excelled greatly, uh, you know, expediently, but it it just brought on problems. And so she's weighing the options, like, do I want to do it now? Because sometimes you just need to be somewhere and be comfortable. You just need to be somewhere and be comfortable. But then, if you are an achiever or an overachiever, you want to achieve some things. And so but still, you just don't want to get uncomfortable. You don't want to change. And each of them are excelling on these various levels. But you just got to, like I said, you want to be free. You want to wake up and you want to go into your day. You want to have choices. We all want choices. We all want to choose and make the best choice. We want to make the best choices. We want to have great choices. And that's what liberation is. It's about having choices. And one thing I do notice in using this, oh, there it is. I was about to say I can't see a timer. There's my timer. We're at 23 into this. I try to give you a timestamp because I am so respectful of your time. We try to wrap it up in about 30 minutes. If we have some story time, we usually will go 15 minutes. Try not to do no more than 45 minutes. If we're recapping, depending on the day of the week, we may go an hour. But 30 minutes is really good enough information about how I got out of bed. And I hope that you can glean from that some things that you can get out of bed. Again, why do I do this? Because, we have to deal with anxieties. We're in a pandemic, so I brought it back because I know people are experiencing new anxieties, and some people are experiencing depression. There's a lot of change going on. My dad comes over now for Sunday dinner. He has a vintage business and music business, and albums and all that kind of stuff. And so of course, in the pandemic, he was like, I miss having things to do. And I'm like, hey, listen, you're in the neighborhood, because it's vintage businesses in the neighborhood. Come by for dinner. Either it's, I'm always cooking. I've always got a fridge full of leftovers, because I do kitchen videos, right, and recipe videos. So on Sundays, all that stuff that I don't get to eat, either if I don't have any, I'll cook dinner. But hey, guess what? Here's what we have. And so, he came over Sunday, and he just talked, and he kept mentioning how he's just missing all his activities. He's always very active and social man. My daughter, I guess she gets it for him, because I am not. Even though I've done a lot, I did it to write about. It was content. It wasn't really just for, and I think, I'm not gonna say it wasn't for my enjoyment, because I wrote a lot about theater, which I love going to the theater. I wrote a lot about things that I enjoyed, but at the same time, it was a lot of work before, during, and after. And so I never really like went anywhere, like put the phone down, or don't film it, don't record it, don't post it, just be in the moment. And so now I get to do that. That's because it's when now I get to do that. And it's funny because I'll tell you, I went to an event, and people, if I got my phone in my hand, they know. And this is me. I was always live streaming when I went to these things, and people would come up and they want to take a selfie, and they want to, are you live? And I'm like, no. And they go like, huh? Nobody can process me not being live. I'm like, where's your phone? I now walk around. My phone is in my purse. It's not even in my hand. And I used to walk around. My phone was on my either a selfie stick or another type of apparatus, because everything to me was content 24/7. Every waking minute was about content. I was running, a blog that I had for 20 years. And so, about 4 years ago, at year 16, I started implementing my exit strategy. 2017, I blogged a little bit, but I actually didn't necessarily blog, but I had some events because I was caregiving. And then 2018, I tried to resume it, and I was like, and it was different. Everything was different because, of course, I was, post grief. I was going, not post grief. I was all up in the midst of grief and so forth. So everything was hitting different, and I said, okay, I don't know how long this is gonna last. And it was like, well, you're kind of 18 years into it. You might want to try at least make it to 20 years to be able to always say something you did for 20 years. I'm like, okay, I'll do 18, I'll do 19, and 20, and actually 2020 was 20 years of doing it. 2022, if I can, continue on to 2022, is actually because 2002 was when I converted it all to the brand that is now known as Dryer Buzz. But 2 years prior to starting Dryer Buzz as an online destination, a full online destination, I was doing it everything under a couple of names, a couple of brands, a couple of newsletters here and there, internet radio, all these other things that ended up rolling into it. So, I say 20 years, but if you look at the decade even prior to that, is what really opened the floodgates to do any of the things that I did over the last 20 years. And that was one, being active citizen, being engaged, actively stakeholder in my community, involved, in my civic duties, volunteering, working with youth, and just a number of things. And one of the things that I realized is, every voice, becoming a voice of, and telling those stories, and needing and doing all of those things, and needing a storyteller. And I'm like, there are story mechanisms out there. Oh, they don't pertain to me or people that look like me. And I'm like, okay, well, somebody's got to do it. I'll do it. Be that person. Don't be that person saying nobody's doing this and nobody's doing that. Well, somebody has to do it. I'll do it. And what was the other thing we said? Out of respect. How many times a day do you say I'll do it? Not just do it, but I'll do it. Somebody needs to do it. I'll do it. Be that person. Somebody asks me often. I'll say this. What do you bring to the table? I say the table, and don't blink. As one of my mentors used to say, ask for it and don't blink. Say it and don't blink. Because I have the receipts. I have all of these receipts. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of receipts of me buying the table, bringing the table, building the table, setting up the platform, all of those things. That's the difference. And being unselfish with whom I invite to the table. And in being unselfish, hey, listen, it's time for you to go build your own table. You're ready. Encouraging others to go out there, go from the audience to the stage. Listen, you should be on that stage. Telling people that. And here's how you do it, over and over and over again, to where at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, not even at the end of the day, how many times a day will you hear? We talked about this yesterday, so let's go ahead and get ready to do our recap. How many times a day do you hear thank you? How many times? Well, let me tell you. There's a link that I'm going to. If you're looking for more of these on your podcast platform, when I hit the stop button, I'm going to say this is going to become a podcast, and it'll go how to get out of bed as a podcast. And I just decided to come and talk about it in this live environment here. Um, but you should hear thank you. You should the first thing you should have to say. And I'm a little bit torn. You know, let me tell you why. Because you should also be saying you're welcome. You should be saying thank you, but you should also be saying you're welcome because it's give and take. One of the things I heard a long time ago is how many times a day women apologize, and somebody told me to take notice of it, which is what we talked about yesterday, taking notice of things. Even just walking through the grocery store, everywhere I go, I hear women, I'm sorry, and I say to them, stop apologizing. you know. And let me tell y'all, I stopped. It's no longer a behavior, and I'm not saying about going out in life and being. This is not about being unapologetic. This is about people apologizing for things they did not do, for people that you're not that person, you know. But we are accustomed to. I don't know where the custom comes from, but women do it all day, every day before they even do a thing. And so I stopped doing it. And I don't say, excuse me, one, because I'm not going to disrupt you. I'm not trying to disrupt you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. So I don't have to say, excuse me. You're never in my way because I'm a find a way person, right? And there are those, and there's a group of women, the Karens, we put a name on them. The Karens, they have this thing where they try women who literally out there trying to intimidate other women. They have this thing, and I don't know, they're trained this way, their thoughts this way. They literally, you might encounter them. There's a microaggression, and I don't know why they call it micro. There's an aggression that they do, that they just stand in your way. They are out. They literally. And you can sit back and watch them. You ever do people watching? Sit back and watch them. They could be on their way somewhere and see somebody coming, and they will just stop and stand in the way. Right. And they do this to particular people. They do it to all people, but particular people, they do this too. And they just want to, and you'll notice a number of people walking around them, because it's so aggressive and it's so obvious that they do this. And they're taught to do this because they're taught to hate. They're taught to be mean, the mean girl thing, all of that. And so the other people are taught to, you know, go around. And it's like I'm not a go around person. I'm bulldozing. I'm bulldozing on through. Okay. And I'm not apologizing, and I'm not saying excuse me, because I've been taught to recognize aggression. Because one, I'm a person by which people try to direct their aggressions intentionally. And you got to understand, you got to learn how to recognize things that are intentional. And there are a lot of things that are intentional. And let me just say, when it happens, not if it happens to you, but when it happens to you in your daily day, and it does happen daily, now you know. But also, aside from that, I want you to listen people how women, and probably some men, how women apologizing, just it's like even in a crowded room, even in a loud room, you could hear it. Listen for it. I want you to listen for it today. And then I want you to notice, and I want you to see if you, because one thing they're going to do, they're going to apologize to you. And think about it, it catches you off guard, like, why? Sorry for what? What? You become accustomed to say, no worries, don't apologize, no need to apologize. You know, that's like the call and answer all day long, because it goes on, and we just gotten to that place, and we need to stop because there's nothing to apologize for. Again, I'm not trying to say we need to be unapologetic. There's nothing to apologize for. Catch yourself, stop yourself, because that things that we say and do, especially things that we think, you know, it's doing something to our molecular structure. It's doing something to our body language. It's all these things that go in, and these are the things that tell the world about us before we tell the world before we tell the world anything, before we even know ourselves. It's these are things that make us identifiable uh, to predators, if you will. These are the things that make us identifiable to the triggers, to the things that keep us from getting out of bed. Somebody this morning just can't get out of bed. It's like gonna stay in the bed a little bit longer because they have to go and deal with these things, deal with these aggressions, deal with their freedoms being taken away. They got to go and deal with people doing things out of disrespect instead of out of respect. Halfway through your day, you should be filled with respect for yourself and for others for you. Halfway, beginning at the start of your day in your household. I had this rule in the household where nobody got rushed out of the house. I used to hate that. Like, I hated partying with my family when things needed to be said or things needed to be done or somebody needed an extra hug, a little bit extra love or organization. You need some more time, you need some more time. That's a priority up in here. We stop. We take that. Now, yeah, okay. Okay. Wait, you taking advantage, okay? Because I had that one. I was like, I had one that I always had. You always get. You ever make the bus on time? What's going on in your behaviors? And I caused a lot of anxiety, and I have to go back and look at that. I caused a lot of anxiety, but at the same time, that wasn't between us because out of respect, you've got to understand. You've got to understand that there are other situations tied to this. You've got to understand that when this happens, when I have to do this, everything the entire day has to get pushed back. There's nowhere to make up the time. So let's organize this a little bit better, because you always got to have a way to make up time. And what's the thing you use? You don't get back time. So let's not abuse it, right? Let's not abuse it. Let's not have to apologize for it. So we came up with these 3 rules, okay? Let's not have to apologize. Let's not have to have any disclaimers. If we have to do this together, it's gonna be behind. We're gonna be late. No, let's not have to do that. Let's not have any negative side effects, y'all. And we are 37 with 7 minutes beyond 30. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Hopefully it worked out well, because like I said, I did it on a test platform. If it didn't, I heard it. And but I do like I said, this is how I talk myself and start my day. Each day I have these conversations. I used to have them with myself. I started having them out loud. I'm like, well, if you're gonna have them out loud, you need to record them. Why not share them out there with others that are trying to journal, that are trying to figure this thing out, that are trying to get out of bed, that are trying to have a great way to go to bed, they're trying to wake up rested. There's nothing worse than waking up in the day and you're just not well rested, and here comes all of this stuff coming, like feel the wind. Close your eyes and brush. You feel that wind on your face. That's how the day comes at us, and we need to be able to process our way through it each and every day. Everybody does. Everybody is entitled to process what's going on in our lives. And people who take the time in their now to process things don't carry it on. Guess what? I don't have to remember the rest of the day. How I got out of bed. Guess what? I don't have to carry into the next minute and the next minute and the next minute of my day to the last minute, because it's all done. I've dealt with it all. I deal with it all. Not if, but when. And a couple of things I know I got to deal with today is when I finish these conversations, I catch a little bit of news from television, have figure out some brunch, because I don't eat breakfast. More or less, it ends up being lunch. I'm a pet mom, so I have to take the dog for a walk, and he is accustomed to these conversations. And when I stop talking, he starts looking like, "Wait, you finished? Can we go outside now?" And all of that's a part of it. And then there's some things I want. What kind of boxes are you trying to check off today in your now? All right, there's when, and there's now. Okay, there's when, and there's now. We can talk about what happens after later. All right. Thank you guys so much for I put this out on a couple of platforms. If I didn't see your comments, I am coming after this to look and engage. You can also tweet me at DreaBuzz. This is a thing called How to Get Out of Bed. If it worked well, I'll do more of them in this way because I haven't in a while. And I kind of missed some of the engagement. So some of you are just seeing it like, wait, what is this? Or some of you are seeing like, hey, it's back. Didn't go anywhere. It just went to another platform, but here it comes again. Thank you guys so much. Have yourselves a great day. At the bottom of your screen, you saw scrolling there is Shop Dryer Buzz. I recorded this on a Tuesday. And something we have on Tuesdays called Any Two Tuesday. Any Two Tuesday. Go over to Shop Dryer Buzz and learn more. And I'll tell you more about it to come. All right. Have a great day, guys. Get out of bed.